Yes, so today I will be discussing about the different attachment styles in a relationship. So we know that there are two main types of attachment. That one is anxious kind of attachment, and the other is avoidant kind of attachment. So if you are anxiously attached, you generally identify someone taking space or someone not wanting to talk to you all the time is some kind of avoidance or abandonment which you feel. And if you are identifying as an avoidant attachment kind of person, then you are someone who feels overwhelmed when you are too much uh, emotionally intimate with someone. So and these other two kind of attachments, generally there's nothing wrong with any of this kind of attachment, but unless you are securely attached in a relationship, you will keep having these kinds of messes and chaos in a relationship. So what happens is that everything comes from our childhood kind of attachment. So the way we were brought up into our families, or uh, whatever your patterns might have been, that makes you either an avoidant kind of attachment person or an anxious kind of attachment person. So if you're someone who always wanted to have the needs met, but uh, unfortunately there was no one who would tend to your emotional needs, you generally grow up as an avoidant kind of attachment, because that's how you found your ways to be coping with your emotional turmoils on your own. And you become so resistant to being close to someone is because you don't want to feel neglected or you don't want to feel vulnerable, but too much of anything is very bad. So this is kind of avoidant kind of attachment. And the second kind of thing is anxious attachment, is when you were abandoned by someone and you tend to find safety and comfort into someone else, and you somehow have this feeling that you alone don't you alone cannot meet your own needs. So that's when you try to find safety and comfort out of someone else. Now when anything goes into the extreme, that generally causes a lot of troubles. So how do we find out to be securely attached? First thing is that whether you are an avoidant kind of attachment or an anxious kind of attachment kind of person, you need to find your own flaws rather than pointing at your partners. So if you're someone who always is the one who is very codependent on the other person and you don't like giving space to the other person, that's where you need to work upon yourself. And you're someone who is always pushing away your partner because you don't like to be emotionally intimate too much, and that makes you feel overwhelmed, you need to work on these. So when you start working on your own shadow work, or when you ask yourself where are these beliefs coming from and how you can deal with it, that's when you can go beyond it. And the thing about this thing is, once you change yourself, your relationship dynamics also changes. So the person who was formerly an anxious kind of attachment, when that person starts finding comfort in it, in their own body, in their own mind and heart, which they're capable of doing, first they will find it very difficult to do it, because that's how their patterns were. They were always finding this comfort and safety into someone else rather than their own selves. So sometimes when you start changing these kind of patterns, or you try to find comfort on your own body rather than going and venting into someone else on the first just when an incident occurs, you go. And if you have this habit of, something happened and you just go and call someone else or message someone else, and that's how you try to you want that emotional comfort from someone else. When you stop doing this, initially it will be very difficult, but with time it becomes normal, and that's what is healthy. And if you're very avoidant kind of attachment and your partner was someone who always wanted that emotional comfort, and after a lot of fights you get to understand that This anxious kind of attachment person understands their own set of patterns and flaws, and they try to correct themselves, they try to find comfort in someone else. Then you will be forced to be emotionally vulnerable with this person, to need this person as much as they need you, and that's where the dynamics changes. So anything of the extreme measures don't help, and we evolve with these relationships, with evolve with the time. And the main thing is that we need to be there are, in a relationship, 50% of it is us and 50% of it is me. So you cannot have, so, and this is very normal that a relationship will have times of separation. You might feel a bit something off, but that doesn't mean that something is actually off, or if it is something off, then it's a natural tendency also, because just like every season has its own time. So even the separation time, or maybe you guys are together, or maybe some, by separation I mean separation, by separation I also mean that sometimes when you're not talking, or maybe you are limitedly talking to that person, that doesn't mean that everything has gone to the, everything has gone to hell, or everything is not working out properly and it has loses its spark. It's nothing like that. It's just that everything has its own time. So when something is off and you try to force it to, keep it on, the spark on, that will not keep the spark on. You need to understand that this is not some kind of fantasy which happens. I mean, your love story is a fantasy on its own, but you cannot have always intense kind of romance time, or intense kind of very good times. You need to go through different phases to learn and evolve this relationship, and that's how we grow and learn. So that's all I wanted to share today. And I think knowing your own problems, or knowing your own patterns, and why you behave the way you behave, and how you could correct it for your own growth, is what helps us dive through the bad times, and also helps us dive through the relationship problems we face. And that's when we become the change, we bring the change we want to have. So you should never go and find fault in your partner or in the circumstances. You should just put the flaws on yourself and try to correct yourself, and that's how you will grow, and everything you want will come to you on its own. That's it. Thank you.